Welcome back to the program, everyone. Ghana and other African countries have been urged to take steps to mitigate the impact of the projected economic slowdown. Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, gave the advice at a press conference to wrap up the IMF World Bank annual meetings in Washington, D.C. Georgieva has our story.
Well, all too soon, we have to draw the curtain down on the annual IMF World Bank meeting in Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. It could be described as an interesting one because of their warnings about the global economy slowing down. Why? Well, it's because of the trade war between U.S. and China and how that is affecting developing economies around the world. For instance, in Ghana, the IMF is forecasting growth would end the year at 7.5%. Why? Because demand for our raw commodities and oil will be affected because of developments in these developed economies. And that is why they believe that we should all be concerned because of the current trade war that is going on between U.S. and China. Now, despite these concerns, the IMF Managing Director was still optimistic about things looking out good for the region.
As we are all aware, there has been progress in discussions between China and U.S. And actually that was a topic that both countries very openly commented on and commented on in a very positive manner. The issue is not just the tariffs. The issue is, do we have predictability for trade in the future? We know that this year trade slowed down to 1.2%. This is almost standing still.
The IMF Managing Director was also optimistic that the free trade agreement that the continents have signed up could also be a game changer for the region. Well, for Ghana, the concern is that our revenue is not doing well and expenditure is rising. And if government doesn't take tough measures to deal with them, it could have some serious impact for the economy. Let's hear from Kathy Patilo. She's the Deputy Director at the Fiscal Department of the IMF.
Balanced approach that is looking for some expenditure measures and some revenue measures, I think, is the what's needed. So, and in particular, the IMF team then has identified in very detailed discussions with the government feasible types of measures then of at least 1 percentage point per year from 2020 to 2024 that could help again anchor debt on a downward path.
She also talked about the fact that government should use the 2020 budget to demonstrate its commitment to fiscal discipline.
There are particular measures that are being identified, and I think it's about also making sure that spending is efficient and really achieves the objectives that you want, and also to make sure that it's all on budget. So that was the other point about making sure that the financing is transparent. So all spending then should be on the budget.
But the first Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afari, believes there are some shortcomings in these rankings that the author should take a second look at, because he believes that what they used this year was not based on current numbers, but rather that of 2018.
The biggest pillar, the pillar that we came down significantly, was access to foreign exchange. I think that the assessment is not comprehensively done. What we are actually looking at is excluding the central bank participation from the foreign exchange market and looking at purely the commercial banks. And that is where the access to foreign exchange Ghana is coming down, because the Bank of Ghana actually receives all the cocoa inflows, and so for receiving the cocoa inflows, we are a bigger player on the market. And if you take that out of the system, then you are giving the impression that foreign exchange is limited on the interbank market, but there is also access from the central bank that is supplied to the interbank market because of the cocoa process.
He was, however, optimistic that come 2020, Ghana is going to make a strong showing. But is Ghana on track with respect to its economic policies and programs a few months after exiting the fund program? Let's hear from Abebe Selassie. He is the director of the African department.
The team released an assessment of its findings. I think clearly, I think, we look forward to the implementation of the President's very important initiative, this Africa Beyond Aid, Ghana Beyond Aid initiative, and making sure that deficits going forward continue to be financed by tax revenues, implementing the fiscal compact and following the criteria that has been set out is what's going to be needed, and so we look forward to the implementation of that.
Well, for us, it was a whole learning curve in terms of engaging these investors, those who matter in the finance and economic space, that they all met here at the annual IMF World Bank meetings. Till we meet again, this is George Uafe reporting for Joy Business.
Well, back home in Ghana, the Ghana Revenue Authority has reiterated its resolve to widen the tax net through intense public education and the use of technology. Some officials of the authority paid a courtesy call on the Multimedia Group Limited here in our offices. Both parties expressed commitment to deepen cooperation to enhance the culture of paying taxes and filing returns. There's more in this report.
Ghana Revenue Authority (GRA) has paid a courtesy call on the Multimedia Group Limited as part of measures to deepen cooperation of tax education in the country. Board Chair of the GRA, Professor Stephen Adai, explained measures been introduced by the GRA to show up revenue as the authority is targeting 17 to 20% in revenue to GDP.
If there's a government in power, which happens to be today Nana Akufo-Addo's government, but whatever the government is, the first responsibility or the best that GRA can do for any government is to collect the requisite revenue.
Also, Acting Commissioner General of the GRA, Amishadai Owusu-Amoah, cited technology as a major tool the GRA is employing to rake in much revenue for the state, with government targeting 42 billion Ghana cedis in domestic revenue for 2019. Amishadai Owusu-Amoah stated that the role of technology is unmatched.
In terms of the expanding, bringing more people into there, so I talk about the widening the net and deepening. So when I say deepening, like people who like you who are already paying, how do we get you to make sure that you are paying everything? And then for those who are not in at all, how do we get them to come into it? So that's what I mean by deepening as well as expanding the net. And to do this, we are looking at a complete transformation. We are looking at a complete modernization, and we are looking at increasing the revenues.
Receiving the delegation on behalf of the Multimedia Group, Chief Operations Officer of Multimedia in charge of radio and digital media, Ken Ansah, expressed Multimedia's preparedness to support the GRA with tax education campaigns.
A visit as a business partner coming to see another business partner. So we were very delighted. We've been working with a lot of you in various capacities, and with Prof also as a resource person on many occasions on our platforms, who has been very, very helpful, helping us reach our audience and educate them around various topics. So again, we welcome you, and we are very happy to receive you and have you here.
The visit by the GRA to the Multimedia Group is the first of a series of engagements with other media outlets.
An important event here in Accra we want to update you on. The ECWA Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency is hosting a 3-day event organized by Crossfield Consulting Group. The aim is to create awareness and sensitize participants on a balanced approach in designing and implementing bottom-top solutions for universal renewable energy criteria and efficiency in the energy sector. The event also seeks to promote mobilization of investments in critical aspects of ECWA's renewable energy sector. Fedu has more in this report.
Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, who delivered the keynote address, charged members of the ECOWAS region to attach a high sense of urgency in dealing with electricity deficits across the sub-region. At the third ECOWAS Sustainable Energy Forum and Exhibitions in Accra, the Vice President lamented the challenging gaps that exist in making energy more accessible, affordable, and reliable to citizens.
This goal aims to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all by 2030, and thus puts utmost focus on the concrete implementation of corresponding actions that ensures affordable and environment-friendly sustainable energy supply across the globe. Failure to do so would in no doubt hamper the economic growth, particularly of developing countries. Indeed, the ECOWAS region, with less than half of its citizens having access to modern energy services, is consistently deprived of the full benefits of electricity for socio-economic development. If the challenges of low electricity access are not curbed as soon as possible,
Ambassador, she called for transparency in tendering and contracting processes to ensure accountability.
Nearly 2 out of 3 people in sub-Saharan Africa still do not have access to energy. Nearly 2/3. Here in West Africa, the access rate is 52%. And there are bright spots. For example, Ghana has access rates close to 85%. People and businesses across the region also suffer from chronic energy shortages of up to 80 hours per month. And electricity costs are among the highest in the world at 25 cents per kilowatt hour. It is our hope that by removing financial and regulatory constraints that stand in the way of affordable power, we can improve people's lives.
Executive Director of ECOWAS Center and Renewable Energy and Efficiency, Mahama Kapia, does forums like these afford countries to make inputs in achieving sustainable energy supply by 2030, and noted that 50% success have already been chalked.
The ECOWAS Energy Forum, that's ESEF, is an annual event that provides a platform for member states to assess progress made at national and regional levels towards achieving our 2020 and 2030 energy goals.
Fred Duho's report for Joy Business.
Mining now in the Ghana Chamber of Mines is expressing concern about Ghana losing its status as the biggest supplier of mining inputs for the West Africa sub-region in the next few years. Chief Executive of the Chamber, Suleiman Akone, tells Joy Business that mining companies expect government to support them acquire many of the mining inputs locally by empowering local suppliers to meet their requirements. The lack of this, he says, will make the country lose out on the opportunity as a mining hub in the sub-region. Ebenezer Sabte has more in this report.
According to the Chamber of Mines, Ghana is still leading in the West African sub-region when it comes to supply of mining inputs. The situation the president of the chamber, Suleiman Koni, believes the country could be losing out if strategic measures are not put in place to double up investment in the sector. He spoke to Joy Business at a local content workshop by the chamber in Accra.
Given that you have a number of mining, countries coming up strongly, we can talk about Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Mali, and so on and so forth. So the opportunities are actually enormous, and it is for us to really, position ourselves strategically so that we can continue to be the hub for the supply of mining inputs within West Africa. It's an opportunity we shouldn't lose, and our concern is that we may lose it in the next few years if we don't really position ourselves properly.
He is optimistic that the establishment of factories to produce for the mining sector will benefit other areas of the economy.
Our expectation is that before long we should be able to have a local firm actually producing this on the back of the research that they have done. we're talking a value of about $5.5 million for the economy, and that would also create jobs within the economy. The good thing is that this product also has uses in other sectors of the economy. You can use it in the water and sewage industry. You can use it in the petroleum industry as well, and even the beverage industries as well. So this is what we talk about when we are referring to mining as a catalyst for development, because once you set up with the initial intent to supply to the mining industry, there are other sectors of the economy which can also take advantage of it, and then even not just within Ghana but even within West Africa.
The workshop is under the theme Harnessing the Opportunities Within the Mining Industry's Local Content, the Journey So Far and the Way Forward.
In another development, unionized mine workers have asked government to immediately consider a policy which will allow at least 20% of gold produced to be refined locally before export. According to the General Secretary of the Union, Prince William Ankwa, there's a need to add value to a percentage of the precious minerals extracted to increase the sector's market offering. Prince William Ankwa tells Joy Business the move will be another job creation opportunity for government.
For me, the danger is that mining receipt had helped many nations, Australia, United States, California precisely. The gold rush had helped a lot. Where are we going from where we are? We can't produce gold and sell in this raw state. Beneficiation. I bought this ring from Precious Mineral Marketing Corporation. The recipe is just a small corner business. You can imagine saying that 50% of our gold or 20% will go into beneficiation. We'll have gold chains and all the necklaces across the world. You can imagine the money it will bring into our strong economy. I mean, Dubai and all those nations that are making all those inroads had a kind of foresight. So we just got to make sure that the sector, beyond the fact that we produce raw gold, will go along with refine the gold here. That will create jobs, we get a byproduct here, and that will mean that our national cake will actually be enhanced.
So have you made any call to government to support in this regard?
You recall that in the course of the administration of the immediate past President John Mahama, he was in Davos when he made a point of beneficiation. Would they support the cause instantly and said, look, would you want 20% of the gold to stay here for that purpose? What happened? It fizzled out.
You're watching Business Live. Time to bring you some other news. And the National Labour Commission says the increasing spate of industrial disputes is overstretching its limited resources. Chairman of the Commission, Andrew Asamoah, says while between 80 to 120 complaints are registered every month, the Commission is able to averagely sit on only 48. He says the two officers of the Commission are so overwhelmed that some cases end up unresolved as the various parties get frustrated. Prince Apia was at the swearing-in ceremony of the Ashanti Regional Committee of the Commission in our report.
The Labour Commission is described as a poor workers' court to settle cases between employees and employers in both formal and informal sectors. However, with only 2 offices in Ghana, it is able to hear a maximum of 12 complaints a day, which Executive Secretary Ofosu Asamoah describes as highly discouraging.
The Commission receives between 80 to 120 cases every month. That's the average. And the Commission sits 4 times in a week, in a month. That is, they sit on Wednesdays. And they hear an average of 12 cases. So that at the end of the month, the maximum number of cases that the Commission can hear will be 48. And that is the maximum. Sometimes the Commission can hear only 4 cases in a day. 4, sometimes 2. So that at the end of every month, we have a backlog of between 40 to 60 cases at the head office. And the Commission doesn't sit on every Wednesday.
Parties in a dispute, some of whom travel long distances to Accra for such hearing, get frustrated and give up. Executive Secretary Ofosu Asamoah again.
It is not necessarily the pressure on the head office which is worrying, but the disappointment and the inability of the complainants to access justice, not because they do not have a case, but because time, right, an opportunity will not avail them for their cases to be heard. You have people who have very genuine cases, but their cases cannot be heard. This is because the cases come from all over the country to the head office, right? So that if we are able to establish offices in the various regions.
Chairman of the National Labour Commission, Andrew Asamoah, gives some details.
To the workers that if they have a problem, they know where to go. They should not rush into starting that they want to demonstrate, put armbands. No, there are points you have to pass. You have a problem, you come to the commission. If you are unable to resolve it, or if we resolve it and the government does not implement, at that point you can.
He spoke at the swearing-in ceremony of a 3-member committee for the Ashanti Regional Committee of the Commission. Regional Chairman of the newly inaugurated committee, Kwame Adomapia, commits members to diligence in executing their mandate within the confines of the law.
As an independent arbiter, or arbiters, as the committee would sit, I think we cannot do much or less except that we have to work within the laws of Ghana, especially the Labour Act and the National Constitution.
Members of the committee are representatives of the social partners, that's government, employers, and organized labor, who have been nominated to serve on the regional committee. Prince Apia reporting.
Well, there's some good news for internet lovers as government has announced the commencement of 5G trials within the coming year. This was revealed in a call by the Minister of Communications, Esla Osei-Kufo. The network technology is set to link Ghana to the fastest internet connectivity rate in the world. She was speaking at the ceremony to climax the country's Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Information technology, as we all know, has become indispensable in every sphere of human endeavor. And its continuous evolution underpins our economic, cultural, social, and political life. The increasing demand of digital communication services has resulted in massive dependence on the internet and computer systems, which comes with the accompanying opportunities and challenges and exposes all of us to the risk of cyber attack. Ghana is no exception. With the emergence of IoTs, connected devices, our reliance on information technology increases. Artificial intelligence is also emerging to complicate our lives further, even though it will eliminate a lot of the human interaction in doing things. 5G is hovering on the horizon, and we hope to start our 5G trials within the coming year.
We're just about wrapping up. Before we go, here's a summary of news stories from here in Ghana and around the world.